Welcome back. This is going to be part two of writing this short story that's currently titled Zombie Fungus. This video is what it's like to really write. It's not a perfect Saturday afternoon. Last time was pretty good when I was able to do it, but I've been trying to find more time to do this, and unfortunately, during the day I have a day job. I've got family things that I need to be doing. And today, once I was done with work, it was more home repairs. And so this is part of what life is. So what I'm doing is it's about 9 o'clock at night, and I'm now getting enough quiet time to focus on the writing. But I'm also a little bit tired. So you're going to see how this really goes. I may be able to blast through it, or I may struggle and we may do one more session, but at least I can still make progress, and I'll still talk you through this process. Now, in the first video, I messed up the audio, so every time I switched to the internet, made a transition like this, the audio was lost. Hopefully this time it keeps it. It's showing that it's there, but just to be safe, I'll stay in here for now unless I have a very good reason that I need to check this out. So here we go. All right, so when we left our intrepid adventurer, he was figuring out how the zombification affected him. Now, I've had a little bit of time for the back of my mind to work on this, but I haven't really put a lot of thought actively into writing. And so this will be kind of how my process usually goes when I finally get a chance to sit down. Now, what I usually do when I'm writing is I will stop at the beginning. I will read through what I've got so far, and that kind of helps me set the mood. So in the same way, like when I'm about to start drawing in my sketchbook, if I just go straight to drawing, I struggle. But if I start by, having a place where I'm sitting, having something nearby, like a drink of water or something else, to just kind of make it comforting, to kind of get nested. And then I start with a couple of just rough sketches. Not, how do I put it? It is still drawing, but I'm not like going into the sketchbook for any purpose. It's just, I have a couple things that I draw that are more comfort than anything. So I will draw a head, just features, maybe a smile, something, just because it's comforting. I'm familiar with the shapes, and it gets me into that mode a little bit. And sometimes I will have an art book nearby where I like getting the Disney art books or other films and movies, or films and animation art books, and I will just move through that and find something or a few things that I like, and I'll try and recreate those in my sketchbook. And by doing that process first, then the rest of the evening sketching becomes much more productive for me because I get into that headspace of working. So the same thing will be true here. I'm tired. It's been a long week. I still have another long day tomorrow for Friday, but this is how I can get into that writing mode. So let me go through it first. Now, this is not the actual story, but this is kind of the outline that we have so far. So Zombie Fungus is the placeholder title. So the main character sees bugs turning zombie and eating each other, spreading the infection. So this is done with the reader believing that it is people turning into zombies because they're named. And so this is going to elicit a feeling of kind of horror or shock to try and get the audience like very quickly into the moment and try and understand what's happening. We have the reveal that he's watching bugs to take away the scary, get larger perspective as he acknowledges the rest of the world around him. We show how much he knows the neighborhood and the wildlife, and we need a funny moment. So this needs to be a little bit more peaceful, needs to have humor in it to pull the audience away from just the horror. We don't want it to just be, the whole time. We want something to attention grab, but then kind of sink them into this world, do a little bit of world building and character building to give them a reason to care, to connect, beyond just like the shock value and the quick hook. Need the introspection of working through thoughts, so possibly connect with someone else, maybe a conversation with neighborhood kids. And while they don't quite understand why the main character sees this in such a horrible light, they do connect with it on that more childish level of like, wow, this is cool, that's great. So we have humor and a little bit of misunderstanding. Okay, so the main character sees his dad pull into the driveway from work and runs home. We have a moment where we see his family dynamic. They have dinner. We meet mom and two siblings and get the fun with some dark undertones, bringing back the issue that was introduced at the beginning of the story. So while the scene around him is going to be lively, he's going to be sinking more and more into his headspace throughout all of it. Before bed, Dad is busy with work, Mom is trying to get the baby down, and in fear, he tries to approach his father. So he's not scared of his father, but fear of judgment. So this is just a general characteristic where he's normally just afraid of putting himself out there. He initially avoids his dad and gets a curt response and leaves still confused and unfulfilled. He has a moment of realizing that this is important and he needs to really get the help. So I made this decision during the outlining last time because I didn't want it to be something external to him. This is about his character growth and understanding, and through his character development, he ends up teaching actually his father a lesson. And so I didn't want it to be his dad reaching out to him and being aware, like, oh, son, I see that you are in dire need. It's his dad's like, yeah, I'm busy, whatever, I'll get to you a bit. But he actually finds it within himself. He looks for the courage internally to go, I need to say something. It's important that I speak up, even if I'm scared, because that's a powerful, important lesson that kids need to learn, that they should speak up and not hide in their fear. And that's something even us adults need to remember pretty often. All right, so he needs to understand and to have peace with that choice. And so he reapproaches his dad more forcefully. His father, although frustrated at first, stops and has a connective and caring moment. So fear, bravery, acceptance are the primary emotions through this. They talk about zombies and the child's fear of zombie disease spreading in the family. The father realizes that he has been sending the wrong messages to his children and making mistakes in his approach with his family. He corrects it, comes to an understanding with his child, and sends his son to bed. So this is peaceful learning. This is a moment of growth. And then the child, so this is going to be the payoff paragraph or payoff section at the very end. The child will, in happiness and transcendence, spy his father, making a phone call to a relative and working to repair the relationship to cure the zombification and to fight the disease. So the zombification and disease that this child's relating the actual, mushroom zombification of the insects to is this, what he sees as a disease going through his family and their relationships, where it's like they're being turned into zombies, where, one person says something and then a few others say it and it spreads and this becomes a fight and a conflict and they don't want to be with each other. And so this could be politics. It could be religious differences. It could be personality differences. It could be any number of things that we run into as human beings on a regular basis that shouldn't stop us from still caring about the people around us, but sometimes do. And so that's what this is about. It's him finding that moment of transcendence because his dad actually learns from it. And through that, he goes, oh, that's how it should be. This is connective. I don't have to be scared of the zombification of my family anymore. Okay, that's cool. I can move on. Okay, so the main theme that I identified, or the core message, was that a child learns to be accepting, to not prejudge, and to learn that there isn't an other, like, us versus them. Like, there's not an other. We're people. We're fallible, but we're still people. We should still be looking out for each other and caring for each other. And then I always put little notes in at the end to remind myself of key terms or thoughts, or these just become fuel for my imagination as I go through the writing process. So if I get stuck, it's like, okay, what did I already have down here? Maybe I'll add to it. Working through family differences. There may be a case of cognitive dissonance, and if I can spell, and don't worry, that's why we have second read-throughs and cleanup, and there's a lot of work that goes into this, even beyond writing the initial story. So there's all these other concepts that can come into play, and I encourage you that as you do your own writing, make sure that you're getting a lot of intake too. Make sure that you're reading books, that you're studying. Make sure you're not just reading the kind of books that you want to write, but reading other types of books too. Having a variety of stories and genres that you read is very healthy and gives you more to work with. It's hard to work from an empty place. You need to have a lot of stuff that you can draw from at a moment's notice, and the only way to do that is to be a sponge, to take things in. And so do beyond just, whatever fiction you read nonfiction, read history, read psychology, and then yeah, by all means, read the fantasy and the sci-fi and the children's books and the teen romances and whatever you happen to enjoy, and a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily enjoy but that expands your vocabulary, your horizons, and your thoughts and ideas, because all of that starts to tie together in interesting ways that you can then use to share your own messages and your own stories. All right, so let's get to the nitty-gritty of writing this. First off, the main thing that's bothering me right now is I need this main character, and I'm going to expand this down a little bit. I need this main character to have a name. And as silly as it seems, getting a name for a character can sometimes be extremely difficult, because you want your character to stand out and you want them to have a unique name, but if it's too unique, then it's hard to connect or relate to them. For me, I generally tend towards names that are older names that are not as commonly used, because it also helps me feel more of a personal connection to this child. It also tells me a little bit about the child. Even just using a name will give us a feeling for the background of this character. For example, if my character's name is Bob or Mike, it's going to feel very different than if I have like Zivon, or if I have another name like a Dwight, or those names, while they can't all be used in the same place, they can be used all over the place. You get different feelings from different names. So I'm trying to think of a name that's going to sell as character. I don't have a specific location for this place in mind other than kind of around me. So I'm not really trying to sell it as a specific part of the world, or I'm not putting that much detail into this. This is a short story. Now I could, by all means, I could say, hey, this is down in the Ozark Mountains, and this character's name is whatever that happens to be. I don't necessarily want that. I want this to be a little bit more relatable. For me, what's more important in this particular story is the message that I'm sharing. And so I'm going to kind of base it off of my local neighborhood. I'm in central Ohio right now, and so it's kind of that feel, but I also want it to be relatable to other areas. I can say, hey, there's, chipmunks in the backyard and deer down by the stream and rabbits that come by the front yards of this urban neighborhood in the morning. And guess what? There's a lot of places in the world that could be. So it becomes relatable in that way. But I need the main character's name, and nothing is jumping to mind. Even as I was trying to come up with additional possible names, my brain's blanking. Apparently I have a catchphrase for that I kind of noticed, but I had another faculty member pointed out in the middle of class. My brain's gone dead. That's just, I'm blanking for a moment. My brain's gone dead. And so I'm going to be thinking about this as I'm writing. So I'm going to start writing, and then I'll see if a name comes to me. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I may just have to put like MC in the meantime, main character, until I get a good feel. The problem is I don't want to put just a placeholder name, because it'll stick. It always does. Every time I've done like, oh, this is a placeholder, then it grows on you. Okay. But I'm actually not wanting to start just talking about the character. I want there to be a good hook at the beginning. I want something that's going to grab attention. And so I apologize. I'm going to have some moments in this where I do go quiet and literally it's my brain kind of turning. And I will talk you through what happened in here after the fact. But in the meantime, I just trying to let ideas work themselves out. And now I want to call him Jack because Halloween's coming up and Jack Skellington. So my first thought was Jack sees, let's see. And I'm going down a rabbit hole with like Ernest Alphonse. You know what? It's a common name, but I'm going to go with Adam. Just because I don't use Adam a lot in my stories, but in fact, I don't know that I've ever had an Adam character. It's one that you do still hear, but I haven't heard it recently, not for some years now. So out of a biblical context. Well, let's see. So I'm going to play that out. All right, so I want to start this actually in the middle of what's happening with the insects. So let me just take a second here, and I will type, and we will talk through while I'm typing, at least as best I can. Writing the outline seemed a lot easier because I was talking through literally what was going to happen. Now that I'm getting in the narrative, I'm finding it's a little bit difficult to separate my talking, explaining brain from the creative writing one. So let me just see what I can do with this. I don't know if that's grabbing enough. Jerome's corpse rose and began to pursue Esther and Fred. Adam watched in horror as his two friends climbed as fast as they could to get away. Let's see, Sam. I'm going for S's now. Okay, so Adam watched in horror as his two friends climbed as fast as they could to get away. Tina, Greg, and Shanna moved towards Jerome, trying to stop him. They were more vicious and attacking than, or well, let me just do more aggressive. Aggressive than Adam had ever seen them. Adam's heart nearly stopped as he watched them slow down in their attack. Want to get that image of, like spores being released. And this is fiction, so this is not going to happen this quickly. These kind of fungus take a while to actually work, but he's watching this in real time. Okay, so now I have a choice to make. Another fun part of the writing process. I kind of want this to be an action scene where it's very aggressive and, just happening, but at the same time, that's not the way it would happen in the family. We may see moments of aggression. However, overall, these other kinds of things, the core underlying stuff that this is really about, which are those the damaging things that are happening in relationships, those are slower. Okay, so I'm going to make a decision here. I am going to have a moment of action, but I'm also going to pull it back to be a slower kind of run. Let's see. So Adam's heart ached for them. Only 2 weeks ago, they were happy and living in peace and harmony. And these are cliche, I know, but I just got to get the rough draft down. I'm going to come back and we'll redo it. I just got to get something there first. So only 2 weeks ago, they were happy, living in peace and harmony. Then the puff came. Seemingly innocuous. Those closest to it began to change. Within a few days, Jennifer was gone. But her body kept moving on its, moving as if controlled by remote. Yet again, a lot of cliche stuff. We'll come back for a second pass. So yet again, Jennifer's another character. I'm adding names in right now. If I need to change some later, I can, but this at least gives me a foundation. I find that when I don't name characters, even the random ancillary characters, sometimes I do that on purpose where I won't name characters, but in a lot of cases I want there to be names, and especially in this case, we want there to be a connection. I want the audience to feel like, hey, Adam knows all these folks. Like, by name, they matter. Okay, as if controlled by remote. Where she was kind, peaceful, and lived only to make music. Ah. Haha. So Jennifer's a cicada. I now need to do a check. Let me double check. I'm hoping my audio still works. I hope so. Do male or female cicadas make noise? Aha! So see, I almost ran into a trap there. The sound is produced only by males. Okay. So with that in mind, let me come back over here. This is not a Jennifer. This is a Jonathan. Within a few days, Jonathan was gone. And his body kept moving as if controlled by a remote. Where he was kind, peaceful, and lived only to make music. Ooh, that's another thing. Let me check. How long do cicadas live above ground? All right, so couple weeks seems silly, but it's one of those things that will start to matter. Okay, so cicadas only live for a couple weeks. So only a week ago, they were happy living. Okay. It started Lived only to make music. Okay. And so part of this is still going very fiction, like, hey, he was there for seeing the spore puff that happened to affect all this. Probably wouldn't have seen that, but a little bit more dramatic and interesting that way. So that's where I am going to stretch things a little bit more. Okay. So where he was kind, peaceful, and lived only to make music before, now, or he turned into a creature of nightmares. Walking with a will that was not his own. And becoming a host for strange white growths. He advanced towards so I'm trying to be more creative with my wording right now. I don't want to say colony. I don't want to say the anthill. I'm trying to think of I almost want to say it the apartment complex. Towards the home, there we go. Towards the home of many of his friends, of Adam's friends. Okay, I'm gonna rethink my wording. So, walking with the will that was not his own, becoming a host for the strange white growths. He was aggressive, or he became aggressive in his attacks. Yep, I'm using aggressive again. I'm falling into habitual words. And so this is something that I'm going to come back and clean that up. So where I go through my second read-throughs and I notice that I'm repeating words, and this happens a lot in writing because we find things that we're happy with, like, oh, I love this adjective or this adverb or whatever that happens to be, and we latch onto it as we continue to write. That's why we do the second drafts and the third drafts and reread, because if I stop to fix all these now, my progression's going to end. So I just need to get this content down, and then I can come back for a second pass. So he became aggressive in his attacks. The scariest part wasn't even the physical violence, which wasn't always there, but that the puffs spread. Everyone in contact began to change. Some becoming puppeted monsters themselves, and others acting in violence to protect and retreat. Now it seemed that all of his little friends would finally fall prey to this fungal form of zombification. All right. Not great. It's slow. It's boring. I've got too much junk here. That hook is not doing what I want it to. I want there to be like a ooh ah sentence that just kind of grabs and pulls in. This is not that sentence yet. However, this is getting me a lot of content. This is what a rough draft was for. If you stop in your writing and try and make your first pass perfect, you sit there and wordsmith every little thing the first time you go through, you're not going to know what the rest of your story is. And when you wordsmith it to death right at the beginning and then you move on, you're going to come back and find, this first paragraph doesn't work the way I thought it would. I'm going to keep these parts, by the way. I'm just going to move them down as I finish each section. And what this allows me to do is I can still look back and see what my main portions were, like what I was trying to write. Actually, here's a better way of doing it. Here's how I normally would do something like this. I don't know why I'm doing it in a different way for this. Probably because, yet again, camera's on. I get anxious, but that's okay. I'm going to copy all this, and I'm going to put a copy down here. So this will be my saved copy. A lot of times when I have the notes section, I will even do things like this just to indicate, hey, this is the notes section. Everything above this is my working area. So now, as I work through each paragraph or each section, because I don't know how long these are going to be yet, I'm kind of exploring them right now. I can remove that, and then I know, okay, here's what I'm working on next. I do want this first section to be short, though. I don't want it to be longer than a paragraph. Even this is feeling a little bit too long. I need to figure out how to, in hopefully just 3 or 4 sentences, have that impact. The same stuff I'm trying to get here, a little bit more impactful, and in a way that grabs the audience, makes them go, ooh, ah, what? And then I can immediately pull them out of that. So we have enough of that shock and horror and terror of, oh my goodness, what is this scene? But I'm curious because something weird is happening here. Just enough to grab them, but not enough to sink them into it. Because that's not the purpose of this. This is to share something larger. So now I'm going to move on to the next section. Okay, so we have the reveals. Adam couldn't take it anymore. He was feeling so sad and sorry for the loss of his friends that he had to sit up and back away from the anthill. Still watching the ants try to fend off Jerome the cicada, or fend off what was left of Jerome the cicada's body. He was watching the now familiar, oh, see, this is rolling now, the familiar Puff. Escape the corpse, or the fungus on the corpse, and land on their carapaces. Ugh. Esther, Fred, and many others, recognizing the danger, were busy pulling debris to block the entrances to the anthill, leaving Tina, Greg, well, leaving the most heroic outside to face their doom. By the way, debris is not spelled two E's, it's I-S, debris for debris. Okay. So now we've got the real take on the situation. It's not the big zombie thing that was happening before. Yet again, I'm going to reapproach that, but Adam had to back up. He's like, whoa. He could see his family in the conflict. That would explain things since Thanksgiving. The puff must be getting them too. Dad said that Uncle my kids have been watching Harry Potter, so I'm gonna go, Uncle Vernon. No. Uncle Dudley doesn't work either. I need to get other names that are not in existing ones. Uncle Solomon. Dad said that Uncle Solomon was brain dead. Or was a mindless oaf. Mindless and uncaring oaf. There we go. Maybe he had become a zombie. All right. So now we're getting it. I'm trying to think of how much to hold on to that. Adam's mind spiraled. He couldn't see his cousins anymore, and everyone was on edge when he walked around the house, or if anyone, or yeah, let's do this. Every time the phone rang lately, and I'm going to change this. If it was from Thanksgiving and we got cicadas out, it's been a while. I'm going to do since the last family party. So, once again, I'm kind of trying to figure this out in my head. The ants for us are the worst in the early to mid, the end of spring, early to midsummer around here. The cicadas, depending on which ones, some are out kind of in the spring, but a lot more around during the heavy summer. So I'm actually going to change this to maybe since the Easter egg hunt. And so where I am making changes now, because even up above, I'm like, hey, I'm not going to go back and change all this stuff. There are some times where I do need to change logic things or overall structural things when I catch them, where I'm not worried about the wordsmithing just yet, but I want to make sure I've got a lot of this stuff. So since the Easter egg hunt, every time the phone rang lately, everyone was I'm trying to find a good way to say it. They're not walking on eggshells. Basically, what I'm trying to convey is that they're going into fight or flight mode. It's like, oh, crap, who's calling? I don't want to deal with it. It's become a point of anxiety and contention. Every time the phone rings, is it a family member? Is it going to lead to another fight? Is it the doorbell rings? Oh, crap, who is it? You know, that... So every time the phone rang lately, it was treated like air raid sirens were sounding. Everybody's like jumping to and going to action. All right. So he could see his family in the conflict. That would explain things since the Easter egg hunt. The puff must be getting them too. Dad said that Uncle Solomon was a mindless and uncaring. Ooh. I'm liking this. I'm changing this from zombie fungus to the puff. I'll leave placeholder because that might change too. I'm going to go through a whole thing where I show you how to like check other titles and how I kind of do search. But I like that. You know, I can still do, I'm still going to save the overall file zombie fungus and I'll call these videos that for now. But I like the idea of the puff. You know, it's just like, ooh, what is the fear? It's not necessarily the zombies, it's the puff. It's the spreading. It's the thing that's causing it. The zombies aren't the scaring thing. It's what they're carrying, that the disease. All right. And that also, while it is still kind of the dehumanization, it's taking away from the dehumanization because it's not the person, it's whatever the conflict is, whatever the problem is, and trying to separate that. Like, hey, yes, there's this, but we still love you as a person. Great. All right, so every time the phone rang lately, it was treated like air raid sirens were sounding. Okay. Adam looked at the anthill one more time. The conflict was too much. Okay. I'll just change that to a he. Okay. Adam stood up, walked from the back fence line and sat down on a chair by the fire pit. Fence line. Okay. He practiced his breathing that he had been learning by watching his parents after their stressful interactions lately. And then he looked around. It was hot and I don't want to just say it was hot and muggy. His brow was dripping salt and his shirt was soaked. He would love to go to the pool, but nobody could drive him today. Instead, he watched as Patrick and Michelle, his back, or two of the chipmunks that had moved into his backyard last fall, ran around after each other along the fences and over garden beds. He could see the hole where Chuck, one of the neighborhood rabbits, had dug before spying Adam and running back over to Mrs. Moncito's home, or Moncito's more open backyard. Let's see. And by the way, I don't have a Mrs. Moncito in my neighborhood. These are not based on anybody I know. I just have a litany of names that when I see names, I try and remember a lot of them. And I know some authors have like lists or they go to name generators. When I first started writing, one of the things that was actually helpful is I would look through lists of baby names. And those, you can get like 1,001 baby names or the 100 most popular names of certain years. There's all sorts of generators online to find some of that stuff. So just keep your mind open. If you find names that you think you're going to use, great. But other than that, just it's good to come up with names. Okay, so I'm going to have a quick interaction with his mom. And I may be making this go too long. I am fully aware of that. I may end up spreading this story out, and it could be a lot larger than I initially intend. If that's the case, I can either run with it, make this a larger story, or I can come back and say, this is great. I'm not hitting it fast enough. How do I shrink this down? And I've done that before. I've had 10-page chapters that I ended up going, these are too long. They're not engaging enough. I need to get to the points. I'm going to shrink them down from 10 pages to 3 pages each. That is doable, and some of those cuts can make your stories better. For right now, though, I'm just exploring because this is what gives me something to work with. So even if this is completely wrong, it's at least giving me a direction, and this is where a lot of the work comes in. It's just creating it in the first place. To the back door. Yeah, I'm just going to have him yell. See, I'm going all biblical names. I don't know why. Let me see. And I don't necessarily mind that. I could go, hey, it's Adam and Mary, and maybe his dad's Joseph, and maybe there's, a David, and that's fine. But at the same time, I don't want it to read as, oh, this is a religious allegory. It's not. Let's see. I'm going to put this for now. And there are times where, yet again, I don't want to have names for people. And so depending on how much interaction he has with his mother versus just mentioning, that his mother did this or his sister or his brother did this, or his dad was doing this, if I need more than that, then I may come back and put in a name. But for now, I'll just go, no, came his mother's voice. And this is another thing I have to do. I'm old school, back typewriter days, so I always double space. And I know that's not great for writing. I always have to end up doing a replace. So when I go to the review process, actually, where is that? Oh, here. I do a search for space, and then I will do a substitution. I'll replace all the double spaces with a single space. So that's my way of still being able to write the way I've always written, but then I've got a way of correcting it after I'm done with my draft. Okay, so no came his mother's voice. A drink from the hose and go find some friends to play with if you are bored. Yet again, kind of old school, just like, go. Kind of made a face and said, fine. Before shutting the door and stomping off. He opened the side gate and walked out to the road, or to the sidewalk, and down to the stream by the neighborhood garden. Okay. On his way, he's scared. I'm going with a lot of S names right now. I don't know why. Scared Lydia and Jeff. Scared Lydia, Jeff, and the new baby doe that he hadn't named yet. Well, and their new baby doe that he hadn't named yet. You're not supposed to eat from the garden, called Adam. Old man Sumner will get angry again if you do. All right. Okay, so from here, I'm going to keep moving on. This is almost turning into a full book. I meant this to be a short story, so I'll get this down, but then we're probably going to do a lot of hacking and cutting once it gets there. And I still need the funny moment. Right now, I'm keeping it more peaceful, and I'm not quite feeling the humor yet. Maybe I'll have a transition up here. And this is where different types of writing are easier or harder to write in than others. When I'm writing fantasy, it's a lot more fun because I can make up weird, random stuff that fits into the universe and can be exciting and playful and humorous at the same time. But sometimes that's a little bit harder with real world settings because there are a lot of funny things that happen around us, but it's not like a gag reel all the time, unless you're around my kids some days, and then it becomes so. And so it's trying to figure out like what would naturally fit into this environment that could be a little bit of humorous. So here we go. Adam looked up just in time to looked up because of the movement and noise as a medium-sized something hit the stream, sending up splash. I was gonna do like running over to see, and I don't need that. I can just jump straight to it. Okay, why are you talking to deer? Called Sadu. I'll go Sadu for now. Through splutters. You fall in the river, or in the stream. Why'd you fall in the water? Asked Adam, running up to the edge of the bridge. Or running up to the bank. Trying to grab trying to grab a crawdad. You're talking made me lose balance. Get any yet? Look in the bucket. I know this is really boring to listen to and watch, but here we go. Okay, look in the bucket, said Sadhu, a jagged grin spreading wide. Five inside. Adam's best record was 3 in 1 go. And that was using hot dog bits as bait. All right. So not great crawfish hunting, but you know, it's a very rural type of stream, so not a lot there. Okay. Okay, so I'm moving past this. We're gonna have some time together. He needs some introspective moments. We're gonna get through this next section, and then it's been an hour, so I'm gonna get through this next section, and then we'll call it. And then I'll come back to work through a little bit more next time. But yet again, this is just kind of how you start laying out a rough draft. Not what it's going to be as the final, but it's a good beginning. Okay, so we need, for this next part, I need him to work through the introspection of going through his thoughts. He's going to chat with Sadhu. And Sadhu's not going to quite get this. Sadhu went back to fishing-ish, and Adam took a stick to play with the crawdads. Some folks call them crawfish or crayfish. A lot of names we can use. So let me double check something really quick, as long as I'm here. Crawdad. There we go. So crayfish. Anyway, switch back over. Okay, so he took a stick to play with the crawdads. He wondered if the puff see, and now I'm going very country and southern all of a sudden. They looked an awful lot like the bugs back in his yard, and it got his mind strolling back, thinking about. Okay, so I'm not necessarily wanting to go into that voice for the narrator, but I'll probably pull elements of it, because even though this is rural, this is, you know, this is suburban life, there are elements of that nature that's still around, even in the suburbs, even in the cities. So they looked an awful lot. Okay, so Sadhu went back fishing. Adam took a stick to play with crawdads. They looked an awful lot like some of the bugs he had been playing with earlier, and his mind went back to his friends, his insect friends. I wonder if these will get taken over by the Puff too, said Adam. After... Yeah. The what? The Puff, repeated Adam. The thing that has been turning all the cicadas and ants in my backyard into zombies. You got zombies? Said Sadu. So you got zombies, said Sadu, moving over to sit by Adam. So cool. How did you get zombies? Okay, so this is where Adam's going to get a little defensive. It's not cool. It's cool, said Adam. He was horrified at the thought. Sadu just didn't know. He hadn't seen them. It was horrible and somehow inevitable. See, now that's forever tied. Yeah, Marvel. Okay. So it was horrible and somehow inevitable. It just spread and didn't care about who it affected. Adam did his best to explain the zombie situation to Sadu, expecting a change, but all that happened was that Sadu got more and more excited, and Adam knew that for the next few weeks they would end up pretending to be zombies. They continued to talk and play until Adam saw his father's car go by on the main road. Okay, that's where we're gonna pick up next time, because it is getting late and I have work in the morning. Alright, so let's go through what we have so far. Yet again, this is just good to do a quick recap, and then next time I come back we'll continue on, and then we'll just keep going and do as many drafts as we need. Yet again, hopefully you're enjoying this process. It's a little bit slower because I'm trying to talk through it with you rather than just staying in my headspace and writing. But hopefully this is helping you see some of how I approach this, and it's giving you something to learn. All right, so let's go through it. The Puff. Jerome's corpse rose and began to pursue Esther and Fred. Adam watched in horror as his two friends climbed as fast as they could to get away. Sorry, I need to stop doing cleanup. I'll fix all this later. Tina, Greg, and Shanna moved towards Jerome, trying to stop him. They were more aggressive than Adam had ever seen them. Adam's heart ached for them. Only a week ago, they were happy and living in peace and harmony. Then the Puff came. Seemingly innocuous, those closest to it began to change. Within a few days, Jonathan was gone, but his body kept moving as if controlled by a remote. Where he was kind, peaceful, and lived only to make music before, he turned into a creature of nightmares, walking with a will that was not his own and becoming a host for strange white growths. He became aggressive in his attacks. The scariest part wasn't even the physical violence, which wasn't always there, but that the Puff spread. Everyone in contact, the scariest part wasn't even the physical violence. Sorry, I shouldn't do this, but I am. But that even without actual contact, the Puffs spread. I'll have to rework it later. Anyways, everyone in contact began to change. Some began becoming puppeted monsters themselves, and others acting in violence to protect and retreat. Now it seemed that all of his little friends would finally fall prey to this fungal form of zombification. Adam couldn't take it anymore. He was feeling so sad and sorry for the loss of his friends that he had to sit up and back away from the anthill. Still watching the ants try to fend off what was left of Jerome, the cicada's body, he was watching the now familiar Puff escape the fungus on the corpse and land on their carapaces. Esther, Fred, and many others, recognizing the danger, were busy pulling debris to block the entrances to the anthill, leaving the most heroic outside to face their doom. He could see his family in the conflict. That would explain things since the Easter egg hunt. The Puff must be getting them, too. Dad said that Uncle Solomon was a mindless and uncaring oaf. Maybe he had become a zombie. Adam's mind spiraled. He couldn't see his cousins anymore, and everyone was on edge. Every time the phone rang lately, it was treated like air raid sirens were sounding. He looked at the anthill one more time. The conflict was too much. Adam stood up, walked from the back fence line, and sat down on a chair by the fire pit. He practiced his breathing that he had been learning by watching his parents after their stressful interactions lately, and then he looked around. His brow was dripping salt and his shirt was soaked. He would love to go to the pool, but nobody could drive him today. Instead, he watched as Patrick and Michelle, two of the chipmunks that had moved into his backyard last fall, ran around after each other along the fences and over the garden beds. He could see the hole where Chuck, one of the neighborhood rabbits, had dug before spying Adam and running back over to Mrs. Moncito's more open backyard. "Mom, can I come in and play now?" said Adam. "No," came his mother's voice. "Get a drink from the hose. And go find some friends to play with if you're bored." She would make that a conjunction. Adam made a face and said fine before shutting the door. Sorry, I have to get the appropriate fine. Before shutting the door and stomping off. He opened the side gate and walked out to the sidewalk and down to the stream by the neighborhood garden. On his way, he scared Lydia, Jeff, and their new baby doe that he hadn't named yet. "You're not supposed to eat from the garden," called Adam. "Old Man Sumner will get angry again if you do." Adam looked up because of the movement and noise as a medium-sized something hit the stream, sending up a splash. "Why are you talking to a deer?" called Sadhu through splutters. "Why did you fall in the water?" asked Adam, running up to the bank. "Trying to grab a crawdad, and your talking made me lose balance." "You get any yet?" "Look in the bucket," said Sadhu, a jagged grin spreading wide as he stepped out of the water. There were 5 inside. Adam's best record was 3 in one go, and that was using hot dog bits as bait. Sadhu went back to fishing, and Adam took a stick to play with the crawdads. They looked an awful lot like some of the bugs he had been playing with earlier, and his mind went back to his insect friends. I wonder if these will get taken over by Puff too, or by the Puff too, said Adam. The what? Asked Sadhu. The Puff, repeated Adam. The thing that has been turning, or that's... Yet again, once I actually read out loud, it rolls different. The thing that's been turning all the cicadas and ants in my backyard into zombies. You got zombies? Said Sadhu, moving over to sit by Adam. So cool! How did you get zombies? Exclamation. It's not cool, said Adam. He was horrified at the thought. Sadhu just didn't know. He hadn't seen them. It was horrible and somehow inevitable. It just spread and didn't care about who it affected. Yet again, I'm getting a lot of repeated thoughts and ideas, but that's where the cleanup passes will come in. Adam did his best to explain the zombie situation to Sadhu, expecting a change, but expecting a change. Period. All that happened was that Sadhu got more and more excited, and Adam knew that for the next few weeks they would end up pretending to be zombies. They continued to talk and play until Adam saw his father's car go by on the main road. Okay, so what I need to be working on next time is his dad's going to pull into the driveway from work and he's going to run home. He's going to have a moment, or we're going to have a moment where we see his family dynamic. They have dinner. We meet mom and the two siblings and get the fun, some of the playfulness of what happens on their day-to-day. With some dark undertones, yet again, he's going to be sinking into his thought process. Before bed, his dad's busy with his work. His mom's trying to get the baby down, and he, in fear, tries to approach his father. He initially avoids his dad and gets a curt response and leaves, still confused and unfulfilled. He has a moment of realizing that this is important and he needs to really get the help. So he reapproaches his dad more forcefully. His dad, although frustrated at first, stops and has a connective and caring moment. They talk about zombies and his fear of the zombies disease spreading in the family. His dad realizes that he has been sending the wrong messages to his children and making mistakes in his approach with his family. He corrects it, comes to an understanding with his child, and sends his son to bed. So there's that peaceful moment of growth. And then Adam will, in happiness and transcendence, spy his father making a phone call to the relative and working through to repair the relationship to cure the zombification and to fight against the Puff. / disease. Okay. So that's what's still to come, but this is the progress of where it's at so far. So I will save this. Hope to have you watch again in the next video, and hopefully you're getting some value out of this, even though this is taking some time. Hopefully you're at least seeing the process and learning as we go. So, cool. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.